American Government and Christian Perspective, Chapter 3, Section 3. Steps towards Unity. After the colonists arrived in America, they began to establish their own customs and habits based on their English heritage. By the 1700s, they had their own traditions and common experiences that were distinctly American. These common mores gave the colonists a sense of unity that was strengthened by spiritual revival in the early 1700s. One movement which had a great effect on the unity of the colonists was the Great Awakening, the spiritual revival which swept the American colonies between 1730 and 1760. By the 18th century, many established churches in the colonies had grown cold and formal and had ceased to preach the gospel. Many church members and even ministers practiced an outward form of Christianity without ever experiencing salvation through faith in Jesus Christ. But not all colonial ministers had fallen into this hypocrisy. Some had remained faithful to God's word. Through men like Jonathan Edwards of New England and English evangelist George Whitefield, God brought revival to the American colonies, resulting in the conversion of thousands of souls. Of course, not everyone had heard of the preaching of God's word and was truly converted, but few were unaffected by the truths they heard. As a result, biblical principles played a major role in the development of American beliefs regarding religion, economics, and politics. The Great Awakening furthered the cause of religious freedom by reviving the New Testament concept of local churches supported by converted church members rather than by the government. This belief that the local church should be supported by local believers helped spread the idea of the separation of church and state, the idea that the church and government should be separated institutions. As a result, many colonists began to realize that the true Christianity needs no government support. People who had experienced the power of God through conversion gladly assembled together with other believers and gave cheerfully and voluntarily of their tithes and offerings. The Great Awakening also helped to reinforce the values which led to economic freedom and capitalism in the United States. Through Bible study, many Americans rediscovered their Puritan roots, which taught hard work and careful stewardship of one's property. They took seriously the biblical teaching to waste not and to be diligent in all that they undertook. Moreover, they upheld the value of honesty and trustworthiness in carrying out their business transactions. This belief in self-reliance and in the individual's responsibility of his own welfare was consistent with the new capitalism that was developing during the mid-1700s. As each man was free to establish his own relationship with God without intervention of a church or state, each was also free to pursue his own economic interests without centralized governmental control. Finally, the Great Awakening encouraged more political liberty. It followed that if men were equal before God, they would not be barred from political participation, meaning voting or holding public office, because of their religious beliefs. Furthermore, the revivalist preachers emphasized that all men are equal in worth to God. People who were taught this truth were naturally inclined to believe in equal justice under the law. As early as 1643, the Massachusetts Bay, Plymouth, Connecticut, and New Haven settlements made the first significant attempt at political unity among the colonies when they organized the New England Confederation for defense against hostile Indians. After the New England Confederation, no more important attempts were made at political unity until 1754. In that year, delegates from 7 colonies met in Albany, New York, at the prompting of the British Board of Trade. At the conference, Benjamin Franklin proposed a plan for uniting the colonies called the Albany Plan. The proposal called for an annual conference of delegates, one from each colony, to manage Indian affairs, pass laws, and levy taxes for the common defense of the colonies. The Albany Plan was never adopted, but the colonists would remember it in later years when they would once again attempt to unify the colonies.